So recently, something that I've spent a lot of time thinking about is my posture when gaming. I've always kind of thought that posture was just something that's personal preference and you kind of just do what's natural, and that's true to an extent, but changing your posture can possibly make you better. So this video is going to be peak schizophrenia. If you're someone that switches your mice and your keyboards and your mouse pad and you're constantly moving your monitor, then this is a video for you. But if you're somebody who's comfortable with the way your shit is set up, you play great, then don't watch this video because this is just not for you, bro. You're doing everything right. You're doing good. Just don't watch this video. When watching VCT Madrid, I realized that a lot of pro Valorant players have a very specific posture and setup. Firstly, we can talk about their mousepad placement. Now, whether it be watching the pro Valorant players in their streams or watching them at tournaments, I realized that some of the best aimers in the game have their mousepads to the edge of their desk. I'm almost positive that the point of this is to reduce the friction between the stitching and your arm, and I also feel like a lot of these pros just started playing like this so they continue doing it. But when trying to do this myself, I was just never able to find it comfortable. I always ended up having my mouse at the top of my mouse pad, and it was extremely uncomfortable, especially if you're using a wired mouse like the OP1, because my hand would end up smacking the cable and it was just not a good experience. But even on wireless mice, sometimes I would go to the top of the mouse pad and I was just confused how pros were able to play like this. I even thought like maybe they just had really short arms, but honestly I had no idea. That is when I realized the next part of these pro player setups. The reason these pro players are able to play with their mouse pads so close to the edge of their desk is because they also play with their monitor very close to the edge of the desk, and because of that they move back a little bit instead of being completely under the desk, and that allows for their elbows to be off the desk and their arm to be not so far up on the mouse pad. Whenever I used to see how close the monitor was to the edge of the desk, I was always so confused how these pros were able to even see. Like, it seemed like their eyes had to be like an inch away from the monitor, and some of them do have their eyes that close to the monitor, but for the most part, it's like I said, they're moving away from the desk, and that's why the monitor needs to be pulled forward. Because their mouse pad is so close to the edge of the desk, typically the keyboard is as well. If your keyboard is too far towards the back of the desk, typically your arm is going to follow suit, or your keyboard's just going to feel really awkward compared to where your mouse pad and mouse is. Now, as far as leaning forward or sitting completely straight up in your chair, in my testing, that is personal preference. I do feel a little more locked in when I lean forward, but then my back hurts at night, so I try to sit up as straight as possible. I don't feel a big difference in performance when I switch between these two ways of sitting. So after copying some of these things and adding my own little personal touch to them, I really do feel like this has helped my aim a lot. The mouse pad being so close to the edge of the desk honestly makes my aim feel way more consistent. I do still play with a sleeve, and most of my mouse pads are below surface stitched, but just having my arm only touch the mouse pad does feel so much better for my aim. When sitting like this, I also do find myself being able to play for longer periods of time without like fatigue or anything like that. Now, I don't have a fancy Herman Miller chair or anything like that. I just have a normal task chair, and I'm really curious to see how something like a Herman Miller Embody would improve my overall gaming experience. I don't think it would make me any better at the game, but I do think it would make sitting at my desk for long periods of time more bearable, and I also believe that it would probably help with posture as well. The biggest thing that this changed for me was not having my elbows on the desk. By not having my elbows on the desk, I actually saved myself like a lot of wrist strain. Prior to playing like this, I was having constant wrist strain on my keyboard wrist especially, but sometimes even on my mouse wrist, and I didn't know why. The only thing I can think of that would have caused this is when you have your elbows on your desk, you're adding a lot of pressure to your wrist, and because of that might add some strain or fatigue. When I used to play Fortnite religiously, I used to sit super far leaning forward, and I used to have my keyboard vertical, and I can only imagine how much damage I did to my wrist doing that. If you guys are just starting to play competitive games now, just avoid that at all costs. Just play with your keyboard sideways like a normal person and get used to it, because playing with your keyboard vertical is gonna give you wrist problems. I don't care what you say. Another thing to consider is if you don't own a monitor arm and your monitor is on the stock stand, it's gonna be really hard to get this set up because your monitor needs to be close to the edge of your desk, and if you try to do that with the stock stand still on your monitor, it's more than likely gonna be in the way of your keyboard or your mouse pad. So I definitely recommend getting a monitor arm if you're having that issue. So I appreciate you guys for tuning into my TED Talk. These things may not help you, or they may help you. I think it's worth a try though. Honestly, it was just a lot of trial and error for me, but I do think it was worth it. I just kept seeing the way that these pros played, and they all played in a very similar posture, so I was curious what it was all about, and it ended up helping me with my aim in the long run. I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.